Wednesday afternoon to you, 4 o'clock time for Sports for CLE. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're having a good day. Browns back on the practice field out in Berea. At least some of them were. A lot of guys not practicing today. Joel Bitonio, Amari Cooper, Mike Ford, Dustin Hopkins, Kareem Hunt, Greg Newsome, David Njoku, Anthony Walker. All not practicing today. Now, Elijah Moore is still in the concussion protocol, but he did practice today, as did Obo Okenrankwo. Still not sure if they will be ready for not only the Bengals game, but the playoffs as well. Kevin Stefanski on the plan for playing time against the Bengals in the final Sunday.
We're going to use this opportunity to rest some guys. I feel like we've earned that opportunity with how we took care of business the previous week. As you guys know, with roster limitations, you cannot rest everybody. So our full intent is to go down there, play well, and get a win. That's really where that's our motivation. That's what we plan on doing. I think it's a great opportunity for some guys that haven't had a ton of playing time to get out there. Throughout this course of this season, we've had a lot of our depth play in these games, but this is another opportunity for some guys, backups, and some maybe younger guys to play. And it gives us an opportunity to see them, gives us an opportunity to see them compete. So I'm excited about that part. Jeff Driscoll will start at quarterback. Jeff's a guy with the system knowledge from Arizona, is helpful to get out there. P.J. Walker will be the backup. He's been great for us. He started in games and won for us, but just felt like this was the right thing to do for the team in this particular instance, to give Jeff an opportunity to show us what he's capable of as well.
Now let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Jeff, it's what you would expect. Browns are locked into the 5th spot. Bengals eliminated from the playoffs. There's no need to do anything other than go out and not get anybody hurt.
You basically want to get into Cincinnati as quickly as you can. You want to get out as quickly as you can. Yes, if the Browns were to win, sure, that would be a little, basically icing on the cake, so to speak. The paramount here is obviously for nobody integral to get injured. You see the names, obviously, and a lot of guys have been banged up all year. Joel Bitonio, as we know, and Miles would looking at an opportunity here to maybe get 16 days to get that shoulder even in better shape. And as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, Miles is returning and rebounding back to form that we've all been accustomed to. A player like Juan Thornhill, 1 game back in an important game, but maybe to sit out this week, get himself as close to 100% for the playoff game as well. But this Browns team, and I think Coach Stefanski kind of hit on it. Look, when the Browns say they've got to go to their depth, that maybe doesn't mean as much to the Browns as it does some other teams. Look, a lot of these guys have played integral minutes this year. The Browns are still going to play the same left tackle and right tackle they've played for the predominant part of the season in Christian and of course James Hubbard. When you have 4 or 5, when you're playing your 4th and 5th tackles, I mean, how many more do you have left? And the other thing is some guys are going to see some snaps. You can only elevate 3 guys per week from the practice squad. And we already know that one of those spots is going to be for the kicker, because we know Dustin Hopkins isn't going to kick this week, so Riley Patterson will come up. Either way, you go into it. It'll be interesting because, you think there's probably a good chance that this crowd can be pretty heavily Cleveland dominated. You got to think maybe many Bengals fans aren't going to be interested in going out into this season finale. So, go down there, handle your business, hopefully get a W, but most importantly, come home healthy.
All right, for the first time today, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Rico. In regards to the game versus the Bengals, I would like to sweep them and finish the season strong. 4-2 record inside the North Division, 12-5 overall record. But obviously, there is some players that need some major rest. We haven't had a bye week since week 5, I think it was. Players on the level of Miles and Ward and Cooper and maybe Njoku and some of the offensive linemen. How do you feel about that? I think the risk versus reward is very minimal. So do you think the Browns should try and finish strong and go for the win by playing some key players, or sit them out and get ready for the real test, the real prize? Thanks. Go Browns.
Jeff, he pointed out the bye week came week 5, and doesn't matter. They're in the playoffs. They're locked into the 5th seed. All that other stuff doesn't matter. They're in the playoffs. The risk is too great. Having said that, you know, there are going to be guys that are going to have to play, and if somebody gets banged up, you may see somebody that you really don't want to have to play, because as Kevin Stefanski alluded to in the soundbite we heard, you can't rest everybody.
Well, you can. You have a 53-man roster, and look, the best you can do is bring up 3. You still can't dress 53 anyway. And it's not like redshirt rules where the guys only played a minimal amount, so it doesn't count. So you got to go out there. Honestly, ideally, what you would like is, maybe you have some guys and you would say, hey, maybe if I can just get a quarter, maybe you get up 10-0, and then you can start pulling guys back. But, look, this game 2 years ago, the season ended in Cleveland. Cincinnati came to Cleveland. Cincinnati basically sat all their top talent. And what did they do? Yes, they lost that game, but then they went on a run that led to them obviously ultimately going to the Super Bowl and playing the Los Angeles Rams. All your eyes now are obviously on next weekend. And look, it's a really, really cloudy spot here. Browns have no idea who they're playing yet, and you got to get through this week. You certainly want to get your practice in. And, for a lot of guys, this is a big opportunity on Sunday. Some guys are going to get to play a full game, probably haven't played a full game since they were in college. So, there is that aspect of it. Sometimes in games like this, coaches, loosen up how the game is run. Sometimes you might give one of your assistant coaches a little bit more game day duties than you normally would. You try to go and have a little fun with it, and, get a lot of opportunities, to just basically have fun in the NFL because it is such a pronounced business. But, you want to go down there. You want to show well. If they leave with a victory, obviously that's just going to continue the high and the morale that this team is feeling right now. If they don't get it, it's not really going to hurt it either. You just kind of, don't want to say you're going through the motions, but look, the Browns are going through the motions because it's either next Saturday, Sunday, or Monday is the only thing that's really on their minds right now.
All right, Stephen A. Smith, ESPN's First Take. Top 5 teams in the NFL heading into the final week of the regular season.
Give it to me right now. Bam! The Cleveland Browns. Why? An elite defense in the National Football League. The potential kryptonite to a Lamar Jackson on the offensive side of the ball. Joe Flacco is flinging that football around like he's the second coming to Joe Montana. Amari Cooper's got over 1,200 yards receiving on the season. And Njoku is no joke as well. Elijah Moore is making a contribution. This kid Ford in the backfield, along with Kareem Hunt, has been doing their things. The Cleveland Browns are coming. I'm not sleeping on them at all. They're a top 3 team right now, the way they look, but they ain't top 2 though.
He has the Ravens and the 49ers as his top 2, the top seeds in each of the conferences. And Browns are the only team that has beaten both the Ravens and the 49ers, the top 2 seeds, who will get byes in the first round.
Both are really, really solid football teams. Obviously, San Francisco and Baltimore. The Browns defense is probably playing better than either of those teams. And right now, you look at the way this offense is performing here over this last 5 weeks, the Joe Flacco era part of the 2023 season. And for Joe to get this rest here, and, Joe will be turning 39 the Tuesday after the first weekend of the NFL playoffs. So, it's been a nice 5-week run here. Maybe a nice opportunity here for him just, get his legs back a little bit. And, get himself geared up and just start to look at this a different way, as obviously this is going to be a playoff game here. Potential matchups down the road. Obviously, the Ravens, look, ideally, you don't want to face the Ravens. Hopefully somebody else handles that dirty work for you. But, you're not afraid to go to Baltimore. You're certainly not afraid to go down there and have to try to chase a game in the fourth quarter. The Browns have already proven they can do that. San Francisco, it was not their best day. It wasn't their top day. Brock Purdy was not himself that day. But you give a lot of that credit to the defense. They just kept coming all day long. 49ers couldn't find their footing, couldn't find their stride that day. You're really confident with this Cleveland Brown football team right now. Yes, having to go through the playoffs as a road team, basically, for most likely the entirety of the playoff run is not the easiest route. But when you got a defense like that, defense usually travels in the playoffs. And usually when you come down, it's a crucial game in the playoffs. It's usually the defenses that are usually a little bit ahead of the offenses.
All right. So take a look at this. Dalvin Cook expected to be cut, and it should happen. They actually have released him. They did it today. So he has 24 hours to clear. 4 o'clock tomorrow, he will clear waivers. 4 straight seasons, 1,300 yards, 6 touchdowns. Cook only had 214 yards, no touchdowns with the Jets. Limited, and I mean limited touches. I think it was 67 was the amount of touches he had. I know you've dealt with this in Locked On Browns podcast. Do you think the Browns should try to add Dalvin Cook, Justin Houston, Jarvis Landry, somebody like that, or is it kind of is the offense and the skill guys kind of is what it is at this point?
Well, I think the Browns got some relatively good news today. Obviously, neither of these guys look to be playing in Cincinnati, but the fact that Elijah Moore, and we're talking 6 days, after the concussion that obviously forced him to spend the night in the hospital, the fact that he was on the field today, even doing anything, obviously, you would think bodes well to be being ready 10 days from now to play in a game. Ogbenaya Okoronkwo going to practice today, doing some things, participating. Again, you don't expect him to play Sunday. But Ogbo has won a ring. He's been through a playoff run with the Los Angeles Rams. He understands how important this time of year is. So there's 2 guys you're getting back into the fold. Justin Houston maybe becomes a little less irrelevant if you're going to have Ogbo for the playoffs. And the scenario that I was trying to make the Dalvin Cook thing make sense was if you were going to lose Elijah Moore. We all have seen, Jerome Ford, yes, his drop rate is not great, but he's been a big presence in the receiving game for the Cleveland Browns this year. So I was wondering maybe if Jerome Ford was going to have to do a little more receiverish things if he didn't have Elijah Moore. But that doesn't look like it's going to happen now. So we'll see how it works out with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, so Cook, an interesting guy. The Browns did make an addition to the practice squad earlier today. They've added guard Roger Saffold to the practice squad. He was released from the Jets practice squad. Now, Saffold started for the Bills last year and has been a longtime starter. Also a Cleveland native, played his high school football at Bedford High School, but the Browns have added a veteran guard. Roger Saffold has started over 150 games in the NFL.
This was never the most athletic player, so obviously for Jarvis, it's an issue.
Yeah, Jeff, when you look at it, Saffold, they add Roger Saffold. It's an interesting guy that's been a veteran, has played in a lot of NFL games.
Well, you bring a guy in like this, and obviously Ohio roots, and this is actually funny. The episode we did last night, I was talking with Pete Smith from the OBR, and he actually kind of, highlighted this. He thought it was probably something that would happen when you get a guy who's got 13 years NFL experience. Look, the Browns love Michael Dunn. He's always been a really, really good role player for them. But when you can bring in a guy, who has the experience, obviously the Roger Saffold does, you get him in here. You don't know necessarily if you're going to need him, but it's not the worst thing in the world if you have to go to him. Maybe he'll get an opportunity here this week. I don't think he's going to be one of the guys they bring up. They're probably going to have to bring up, at least 1 defensive player, if not 2 defensive players this week. But you get a guy with a lot of experience. He's obviously been in the playoffs. He's been in significant playoff runs. Just somebody else to bring into that locker room to basically kind of just talk everybody through it and kind of keep the vision to where it needs to be. And hey, if you're a guy like Roger Saffold, it's not the worst thing in the world to go home, join your hometown team maybe for a couple of weeks and hopefully get to experience, a nice, significantly long playoff run.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. When we return, stay with us.
Ooh, holiday gold! The $20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got Merry and Bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE with Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, this is Jim from Rochester. Congratulations, Cleveland Browns, including Coach Stefanski. How he continues to do it, I don't know. Even I doubted it. But my dad, who's been a Browns fan all these years, myself and my family, say congratulations, Browns, because they deserve it. Now, on to the playoffs. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. We're in.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, even the folks that have questioned some of Kevin Stefanski's play calling can't question what has happened with this team this year.
Look, I mean, and we've talked about this, but I mean, you try to tell this story, and if you were, going to tell this story of this Cleveland Browns season, to somebody who had no access to see any of it. Wait, 4 quarterbacks? Wait, I mean, it definitely, if it's a script, you're going to have people questioning whether or not, the script would be believable. But, there's something to be said for unity. There's something to be said for morale. When guys are willing to, go to the extreme, the guys that they play with, but, you can get the best out of people. And we've certainly gotten a lot of guys here who have performed above expectations, guys who were probably never really count on to perform much at all. It's just really been, kind of a really magical ride. And then you go with the fact that obviously you won 4 straight here to kind of close it out here to get to week 18. And every week where it looked like the Browns were getting closer and closer to 500, then they inched up past it. Then obviously it was 7-5. Then they were going to play about 5 games. And I think it was like 24 days, from the Ram game to the Jet game, went 4-1 in those games, won the last 4, and just absolutely solidified that top wild card spot. It's the extensions that are going to come for Andrew and the extensions that are going to come for Kevin Stefanski, they're going to be well deserved. But you just kind of like to see that, your team after, and look, the jokes are there, and obviously we know all about the turnover here. But you finally got 2 guys that, I think most people, Cleveland Browns wise, would say, hey, force another 5, 6, whatever. We have a lot of faith in what these 2 guys have done to this point. And there's no reason to believe that these guys cannot make it a sustainable product for the next 4, 5, 6 seasons.
Yeah, and along those lines, guys that you never expected to play. Ronnie Hickman, a undrafted rookie free agent safety, was the highest graded safety in the NFL week 17, 92.6. Just, another example of a guy being ready when they needed him. And that pick 6 is what swung the Jets game without question. That buried the Jets.
Well, you look at Ronnie Hickman, and the thing that's really, for me, been the most exciting of this over the last couple of weeks, now you obviously understand, now here is a guy that's probably obviously been glued to his playbook, but who was playing in front of him? You had Juan Thornhill playing in front of you. You had Grant Delpit playing in front of you. You had Rodney McLeod playing in front of you. So obviously, as a rookie, and certainly an undrafted rookie, you could have thought, man, you could have thought maybe the kid was just lost because he never thought maybe the opportunity would come. Then all of a sudden you turn around and none of those guys are there. And so for, Ronnie Hickman got his opportunity. You can kind of see the future, with Juan Thornhill, who plays very well as a free safety. We know Ronnie Hickman plays his best with the ball in front of him. You can do a lot of things then with Grant Delpit. Obviously, he's a good blitzer. Grant is good in coverage with tight ends. He's good in coverage with running backs. You kind of see the future there of that safety position. Keeping in mind, Ronnie Hickman is making no money. But, bide your time. Do your work. Put the work in. And, most likely, if you do it all right, you'll find a way, towards success. And it was always odd, obviously. We never talk about a guy who was a starting defensive back at Ohio State not getting drafted. So there was, a lot of potential for this to be a really, really, solid undrafted free agent signing. And for Ronnie, he's just obviously done everything the Browns could ask for and even more. And even still, when the Browns get to this playoff game and hopefully have Grant Delpit active, hopefully have Juan Thornhill active, you got to think Ronnie Hickman's going to see just as many reps as these guys would in that game because he's the hot hand right now.
So Joe Flacco was asked, the 5-game stretch that he's played statistically might be as good as he has played at any time during his career. He was asked about that today.
Listen, I think statistically, sure, you can say that. I mean, it's easy to just look at that and say that. But, I mean, I've said it before. I think that doesn't always tell the story. I mean, it can tell, it can give you an idea of what's going on, but it doesn't always tell the story. Listen, you got to give a ton of credit to just, first of all, the offensive line. I think, the pockets and just the amount of space that I've had back there to be able to get through my reads and then do some extra. I think you got to give them a ton of credit. I think you got to give a ton of credit to the wideouts. I think you got to give a ton of credit to Kevin. I mean, he's called pretty aggressive games, I would say, over the last 6 weeks, and I think it's made a little bit of a difference. So there's a lot of factors.
So Jeff, take a look at this. This is the most passing yards first 5 games with a team, NFL history. Drew Bledsoe, 1,762. Kirk Cousins, Minnesota, 1,688. Joe Flacco, 1,616. The second and third one of those, The play caller for both of those guys was Kevin Stefanski.
Now, for a team that for most of Kevin Stefanski's regime here has always had issues getting the ball vertically down the field, and we always talked about this. It felt like they were playing in an arena league field at times, and you were asking the quarterbacks, and we always listen to Coach talk about how high his goal was for the completion percentage per game. That's not something that's necessarily that important anymore, because when you can run off chunk plays like they do, David Njoku going for 37 yards or whatever it was for the first play in the Jet game, and then later on coming back on another drive and going 43 yards, and the Browns just amassing a lot of yardage in just a couple of plays. It shows you that Coach's system works. Deshaun has certainly had some success going vertical as well. But, for Joe, who's, vertical is probably the best part of his game, at least this version of Joe Flacco that it is, he's just, in a groove. And I think a lot of it is a lot of teams have lined up against Cleveland over the years and have not expected many vertical shots, certainly vertical shots that led to success. And for the Browns, it's just cooking right now. And you got a guy like David Njoku who's just literally dominating now because there's no coverage near him, because now teams are all of a sudden threatened by the vertical game. It's just been really, really fun to watch. It's really hard to put into words where exactly this might go. And, everybody, Joe, the guy, look, he's going to turn 39 in January. That is not going to change. So to talk about this in next year or the year after, let's just enjoy this magical ride right now. There's going to be plenty of time for those conversations, obviously, once this season does come to an end. But, this is a ride I don't want to get off of right now. And I'm not certainly looking for a sequel right now. I'm just enjoying the ride that we're on.
Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. And now I'm going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Talk about some unsung heroes from this year's team as well. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
With Jeff Lloyd from the Locked On Browns podcast. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Looking at the playoff picture that's in front of us, in my honest opinion, I think the Browns have a good chance, a 50-50 chance to make the Super Bowl. And I've never thought I'd be able to say it, but I think it's possible. If we keep on playing the football that we're playing, we can play in February. But we have to keep fighting, keep playing hard, and just keep rolling with the punches. We've had a lot of injuries, and I know I know they won the division practically, but I think we can beat them, and I think we could possibly play in February.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Jeff, I don't know that I'd say 50-50, but I certainly don't think the Browns are a long shot by any stretch.
Well, technically, when you say 50-50, he's right. They're either going to play in the Super Bowl or not, I guess, right? But I don't want to, the thing that has gotten this team where they are is week in, week out. Do your job, go 1-0. Everybody knows what's coming up in February. Everybody knows where the game is, but that is not the vision, and that is not the focus that this team has used to get to where they are this year. It is go 1-0. It is do your job. It is next man up. And, they will find a way to, get through Sunday however they do. And, we'll have our idea by then. Is it going to be a trip to Jacksonville? Is it going to be a trip to Indianapolis? It is going to be a trip to Houston. And then all of a sudden it becomes one thing and one thing only. It's beat Jacksonville, it's beat Houston, it's beat Indianapolis. That is the course. Then obviously you see where the chips fall from there. You hope obviously there could be another upset, on wild card weekend. You'd like to see some of these other top seeds who maybe have a higher seed than the Browns, but aren't as good as the Browns. making their path maybe a little easier to get at least to the AFC Championship game. But if this locker room should not be doing anything else but just looking towards that first playoff game, because look, if we said it was corny, we made our jokes about it, but this is what's gotten them to where they are. So it's the old adage of if it ain't broke, there's no reason to fix it.
So without question, the Ravens are the biggest. They dominated the other number one seed, Christmas night, San Francisco. So they're everybody's hot choice to be the team that represents the AFC in the Super Bowl. Ryan Clark, Rex Ryan, talked about who the Ravens view as their biggest threat.
Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Look, Cleveland Browns.
The crazy thing is, because I'm like, oh man, I am going to get laughed out of here when I say the Cleveland Browns and RC and I, but we think the same way. We think the same way because we've been part of defenses that all of a sudden can suffocate you.
Yep.
And if you look at it, look, we know Cleveland already beat them one time with, by the way, an unbelievable performance by Deshaun Watson in the second half.
Yeah.
But their defense, they might not be as good as Baltimore's, but they're close. They actually lead the NFL in total yardage.
Yep.
So their defense can hang with Baltimore's defense. So that they're going to have a chance. And I think the only way that Baltimore doesn't win the whole thing,
They play bad.
they play bad and they turn the football over.
No one's beaten Baltimore this year. But
No.
Baltimore's
beaten themselves.
Right, yeah. So here is why I say Cleveland. And it hasn't shown up recently, right, in the last few weeks. The only place Lamar Jackson has been susceptible the whole year is in the pocket.
Yeah.
That's it. That's when we've seen them turn it over because they have guys that can get to Lamar Jackson, starting with Myles Garrett.
Ooh.
Now, from what we've seen from Lamar in the last few weeks, we're just picking teams because we feel like having fun.
Yeah.
Right? Because with the way that
We got to pick something.
yeah, with the way that they're playing, it don't matter if the Cleveland Browns come with Joe Flacco, Joe Namath, Joe Montana.
Jim Brown.
Right? They gonna get it.
And Jeff, Lamar Jackson's been playing very well. He is the MVP of the league without question. I'm kind of with Ryan Clark there. I want to see him play from the pocket. Make him play from the pocket against a good defense that covers well.
No, I mean, there's a couple things here first. Lamar Jackson did win an MVP once, and the Ravens went out and lost their first playoff game. Second of all, Rex Ryan, Cleveland Browns are a better defense than the Baltimore Ravens. No, that has always been the key because, look, and it's not that Lamar can't win from there. It is not that Lamar is not talented from there. It's that when Lamar goes two-way player on you, you're at his mercy. You truly are. And when he can keep his head up and he's, moving out of the pocket and it's one little tiny pump fake and the next thing you know, heads go down or heads get turned and, where's the coverage? Where's the assignment? And all of a sudden he just ran for 17 or 18 yards. And the biggest thing, and you go back to that Thursday night game where Joe Burrow got injured, but earlier that evening, Mark Andrews went down as well. And a lot of people were going to wonder how this was going to truly affect Lamar Jackson because, look, as long as Lamar's been there, him and Mark Andrews, that's been each other, man. Mark Andrews has been his guy. He has been his dude. But what was he going to do when he didn't have his guy? And for Lamar, he has really, really picked up his play. The other thing was we always were concerned about Lamar and getting the most out of wide receivers. He and Zay Flowers looks like it's going to be a pain-in-the-butt relationship for everybody else in the AFC North for a long time to come. Look, he's playing really, really well right now. There is no question he is in the zone. But we've made these conversations before about a lot of players, and that 5 to 6 week range is great. But we've never really seen anybody go, 10, 11, 12. There always seems to have that one, tire blowout, et cetera, type of an excuse where it just didn't work that day. Obviously, they're going to be the hunted. There's no question about it. And for Baltimore, it's going to be, there is that analytic approach of having to shut it down significantly. They're not shutting it down 1 week. They're going to be shutting it down like 20-something days because not playing much this week, certainly not playing next weekend, and then trying to rev it back up. I'm not saying they can't, but, that's definitely got to give you some pause and hesitation.
All right, before I let you go, I know you've addressed this on the Locked On Browns podcast. Unsung heroes who have helped the Browns get where they are.
Well, I mean, you talk about Jerron Christian and James Hubbard. Look, they're not playing like world beaters. But you are not supposed to play your 4th and 5th tackles. I think it's 8, 9, 10 starts each. And, for that to be a significant contribution for them. The Anthony Bell, obviously the playing time is probably going to start to decrease here a little bit. Browns were smart. Hey, here's a great special teams player. Let's play him around the line of scrimmage. He's got like 6 tackles for loss in his 3 starts. Ronnie Hickman is certainly one of those guys as well. Sione Takitaki, with Anthony Walker being out the last few weeks, Sione's getting more and more confident each and every week in that, recovered ACL. He and, of course, JOK were all over the field against the New York Jets. 2 of them combined for like 33 tackles, some ridiculous number. Alex Wright has had a sack in 3 straight games. They're so well coached. The scheme is so good that, we have all this, nerves. Oh, no, this guy's out, da. And then we get to each game and, wow. Granted, these guys are not performing at the level they're guys they're replacing, but the fact that you're getting production, you're getting quality play out of all of them, it has just really, really been, a special, special thing. And, for this team and everything they've done in playing together, again, you really think this is something that, can go on here for a couple of weeks because, when teams are that tight and teams are that unified and everybody in the building is on the same page, that usually is a recipe for success, and it's something that just cannot be beat.
Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast, as always. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
All the best, Dave. Thanks for having me. And obviously, everybody, Happy New Year. And, we'll look forward to, obviously, Sunday and then all the madness of the week to follow.
Sounds good. Again, Jeff, appreciate the time. Check him out, Jeff Lloyd, Locked On Browns podcast. Always really good stuff. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily, Network 216, straight ahead. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch-off?
It has a 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back.
Game on the back!
Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back!
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams, I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Chaos, baby. How freaking exciting. Oh, my gosh. I love this team to death. But question, should the Browns start the starters on this Cincinnati game, or should they let them rest? I'm like 50-50, because you don't want them to get rusty or sit for all those days, but then you don't want them to get hurt. All right, go Browns. Woof, woof.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. Let's welcome in Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily, as well as Network 216. Casey, what do you think it looks like? The one thing is, football is a little different than any of the other sports because, linemen can get somebody rolling up on it. It is a dangerous thing anytime you step on a football field.
Yeah, I find this absolutely fascinating because we've been on the other end of this where the final game comes and it doesn't matter, but it's because you've had a disappointing season. And maybe you faced a team who had locked up a playoff spot and they're rolling out some of their backups. It's to be on this end of it, it's going to be fascinating to see how they thread that needle because that's what it comes down to is, Stefanski's been preaching 1-0 every single week. You just can't get to the last week and say, it doesn't matter this week, boys. You still gotta try to see that through, try to ride that momentum. But there's a fine line. Like, where do you draw the line of someone someone you can expose to injury? You know what I mean? Because that's what it comes down to. Obviously, your older players, Joel Bitonio, Wyatt Teller, look at Amari Cooper, who's already battling an injury. These guys aren't going to go. But there's going to be players that have probably earned the right to kind of hang out on the sidelines in this glorified preseason game who are going to have to play. And then you heard Stefanski say in his press conference, there's going to be inactives, but there's also going to be a lot of players who are not expected to play. But that can all change with an injury. If you decide to sit Pochich and Nick Harris goes out there and rolls an ankle or something, all of a sudden you got a guy who's kind of cold going into the game, and then we're all watching the game with our breaths held. It's going to be fascinating to see how they thread that needle, because that's what it comes down to. And then you just look on the other side. What do the Bengals have to play for? They're completely eliminated. Like, why would they send Jamar Chase out there? Like, you don't. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a little cat and mouse game. You definitely don't want to finish the season on a sour note. So you still want to try to win the game, but at what cost? So I do feel good for some of the backup players, though. Like someone like Austin Watkins Jr., who's been on the practice squad to get an opportunity in this, or Mahmoud Diabate, who's been a special teamer. He's going to get some reps now. So it's just going to be a glorified preseason game. So it's just a lot of things to keep an eye on, though.
So this is from ESPN's Get Up. Kimberly Martin, Marcus Spears on the Browns and the Super Bowl.
Would you be shocked if Joe Flacco and the Browns win the Super Bowl?
Are you kidding, Greeny? No, I would not be. You know why? Because I've spent half my life in Cleveland, and I've watched this team week in and week out. Listen, this is a different team. That defense has been consistent from day one. Myles Garrett, he's my Defensive Player of the Year. And the way Joe Flacco has sort of been embraced by this team and is slinging the football, listen, that man is elite.
Marcus, is it for real? Are Joe Flacco and the Browns for real and perhaps destined for a significant playoff run here?
Gee, I know we never supposed to say this. I don't know, man. I don't know. I know this defense is. And look, Flacco has played wonderful, but Flacco has also tried to get a damn football away a lot while he's putting up all these guarded numbers. And in the playoffs, I get worried about the guys on the other side catching those footballs and interceptions as opposed to dropping them when Flacco puts it right in their hands. That's my only concern. But do they have the talent? Absolutely. They have the talent to make
Here's
the
the
Super
thing.
Bowl.
The Ravens are the team that I think is going to win the Super Bowl. Let me tell you right now, they don't want to see the Cleveland Browns. They're division rivals. The Cleveland Browns can beat the Ravens.
Casey, I can't argue with anything that Marcus Spears said. I heard him say that. I'm like, yeah, that's my fear. Now, Joe Flacco kind of takes care of the ball a little bit more in the postseason. At least he has historically.
Yeah, and that's something they cannot afford to do. Then they've gotten away with it, and it's almost kind of built to the fabric of who they are. Is they're going to turn it over 1 to 2 times a game, and they're just going to hope their defense gets that one extra turnover to give them the extra opportunity. But during the postseason, things will have to tighten up a little bit, and because now you're playing nothing but good teams, and they'll capitalize on mistakes, so you have to try to minimize that. But at the same time, you can't change who you are. So I still expected there to be 1 or 2. You just got to hope that they happen on their end of the field and don't come back to bite you immediately.
All right, so this is kind of interesting. This is 10-win teams and a look at their quarterbacks. Now, not pictured is the Bills with Josh Allen. The Browns are 10-5. They have 4 quarterbacks. 12-3 Baltimore, Lamar Jackson. 11-4 the Lions. That's Goff. Tua, 11-4 Dolphins. 11-4 Jalen Hurts. 11-4 Brock Purdy. And 10-5 Dak Prescott. So the Browns and they'll start their 5th quarterback. Most of those other teams will start their 2nd. So that kind of hammers home the challenges that Kevin Stefanski and the Browns have overcome.
Yeah, the challenges and the adversity and their ability to persevere. You're sitting sitting on 11 wins, and you've had 4 different quarterbacks, and you're looking to get number 5 as win. And it's only happened a few times in history. You look at the 2015 Texans, I believe, were the last team to make it to the playoffs, starting 4 different quarterbacks. And I don't believe all 4 of those quarterbacks got wins. All 4 of your quarterbacks have gotten wins. What happens if they make it a 5th? What happens if Jeff Driscoll goes in there and leads them to a 12-10 slugfest, and all of a sudden you got 5 different quarterbacks with wins? Yeah, just give Stefanski the trophy now, and nobody has to get hurt.
All right, Mike Lombardi on Joe Flacco in Kevin Stefanski's and the Browns offense. This was from the Pat McAfee show. It's really interesting.
Flacco probably what next year? He's going to sign a 2-year deal, probably $40 to $45 million.
I don't know, because Flacco, if you study Flacco's career, he's really good in that Stefanski, really it's Gary Kubiak's system. God bless Gary Kubiak. It's his system. And he was really good in that when the Ravens played with him in 14. Flacco was very good. But then when he lost that ability. Like, I don't know how the Browns don't bring Flacco back. I know they got Deshaun at $65 million for the next 3 years, but he's the best player for their offense right now. I think he'll, and Flacco knows that, right? Flacco knows this is the best way for me to make money. Like, I can go somewhere else in my career.
How many other ones of those are around here? That's like the next question then. How many other locations?
Like, who would fit that scheme? I mean, I think to me, well, we know Shanahan runs that scheme. It's the Kubiak, Mike Shanahan. We know that Houston runs that scheme, but they run it and they understand it. It's one thing to steal the plays. It's another thing to understand the scheme. Right? That everybody steals the plays. Everybody stole Kubiak's, throwback to the tight end on the over route. That's become so popular, or the delay route. But it's, do you understand the offense? And I think that, and how you coach the quarterback too. Let's not minimize that. It's how the relationship is between the coach and the quarterback.
I'm excited to see what happens with Joey Flacco.
Me too.
Yeah. Casey, the first drive that he had against the Rams, it was like, oh, this is what this is supposed to look like.
Yeah, and he's been the perfect avatar for what Stefanski wants to do as a play caller. And a lot of that is the familiarity of being in the Kubiak system, And it was interesting to see there when they brought everyone together in the personnel department. They all had to do their quarterback scouting of people that are available. They all had Flacco as the number 1 option. So, so when Stefanski can cross-reference that with Gary Kubiak himself about, you kind of have an idea of how it would fit. And it's just worked out better than anyone could have possibly imagined. And it's a mix of things, too, because in Stefanski's offense, you have to hit those layups. He'll call the layups for you, and you have to hit them. They're the extension of your running game. They're easy ways to stay up with the sticks. But then you have to take advantage in the verticality of the game. And so far, out of all the quarterbacks that Stefanski's had, this has been the best player he's had at that exact thing, where you can hit the layups, but then just be efficient in your verticality and really make defenses pay and keep them on their back foot. And it's just kind of come together for a perfect storm with your personnel and the things you want to call and the things you want to do and the things you've already kind of had built into your system, that he could just step in and do these things right away. And he's been the perfect avatar for what Stefanski wants to dial up.
And it will be interesting to see. Joe Flacco will likely have some options, but he's not a guy that needs the money. He's not a guy that needs to take a beating at 39, 40 years old. So it'll just be real interesting to see what he decides he's going to do moving forward. Casey Kinnamon and I are going to move forward. We're going to take a quick time out. Back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily, Network 216. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. This is Danielle. Hey, what a great game for the guys. I'm so happy for the team and the fans and the city, and I'm just grateful that I can experience this now. And I also just want to talk about Taki. He had 7 tackles in the game before last, and I believe he had 16 tackles in this game here against the Jets. So I wonder what you guys think about Taki, since he's getting a little bit older, but he is performing very well, and also about the punters and Driscoll. All right, Happy New Year. All right, woof, woof. Go Brownies.
So I always appreciate all the voicemails. Casey, I think what you're seeing from Taki and all the linebackers is when the defensive line occupies or when the offensive line can't get to the second level, these linebackers can make plays.
Yeah, and that she didn't read it wrong. 16 tackles last week. He was all over the field. And this isn't limited now. We're looking at 2 seasons in a row where he's been asked to move from his natural position of Sam to come play in the middle, either Mike and Will. He's done excellent both times he's been asked to do that, and I think it just gives you another chess piece, a guy that, because when he's a Sam, he's one of the best in the league, setting that front side edge and kind of sacrificing his body to give the defense the numbers advantage. But when you ask him to move over, he can do that just as well. And I would argue that he's actually played better than Awalk in that role. Now, the difference is you have to have JOK be the green dot, in which you've finally seen that transition over. So it'll be interesting to see how these final games play out. Taki can make himself some decent amount of coin if he wants to kind of switch positions. And just his growth as a linebacker since coming into the league, because we're talking about a guy who was an edge rusher in college to transition to being a true off-ball linebacker. That's not an easy thing. You don't see it that often. And he's transitioned nicely, and he's all over the field. He's someone you really don't get caught in man coverage. He can do zone pretty well, but his instincts as a tackler are excellent.
He's really good in the run game. Really good in the run game. Ryan Clark, ESPN's First Take, talked about why the Browns are dangerous in the playoffs.
When you watch this team play and to have a quarterback like Joe Flacco who's playing without fear and with pure joy, right? Joe Flacco is like, hey, man, if I throw this ball 60 yards and they pick it off, I don't care because I'm finna throw the next one 60 yards too. And I know Kevin Stefanski is going to put me in some position to have some layups, to have some easy throws. I just have to make them. And you think about being able to run the ball, being able to play defense, and having an experienced quarterback that's at least seen everything and also seen it when he'll have to see the Baltimore Ravens, which is in the playoffs. That's why I like this team from a complete team standpoint.
Casey, the thing about Flacco is there's an understanding of what he knows. He doesn't, like you said, the layups, the easy throw. He knows he has to get those so that he can take his shots that he wants to.
Yeah, and you combine that with his understanding of the personnel that he has and when to get his guys the ball at certain locations and how they operate best, and it's all coming together, and it's. Before Flacco got here, it was kind of disjointed. You knew Amari was going to be what Amari is. You could set your watch by him. But everyone else would kind of come and go and phase. But now it seems like everyone who's supposed to matter matters, in your offense. You just look at Njoku's usage. And then what he was able to get going with Elijah Moore in the last game before he got hurt. It kind of gives you a lot of confidence that when Moore comes back, and he's trending that way, he's actually practicing. He's not fully out of concussion protocol, but by the time the playoffs comes around, it's pretty certain he'll be there. That you have a pretty complete skill set and your skill players that Flacco could take full advantage of, and it makes them dangerous. They're the perfect house money team that no one's going to want to play, and it's fun to kind of ride in this momentum going into the playoffs as Flacco playing at the level that he is.
So this is kind of interesting. This is from Dogs by Nature. Joe Flacco in the postseason notes. So Flacco has more playoff wins, 10, than Drew Brees. Better winning percentage in the playoffs, 67%, than Peyton Manning, 52. More touchdown passes, 25, than Troy Aikman's 23. Better passer rating, 88.6, than Steve Young's. More passes per attempt, 7.2, as opposed to Tom Brady's 7. And fewer interceptions, 10, to Aaron Rodgers' 13. So that's the reason that a lot of people nationally are saying pay attention, because Joe Flacco plays really well in the postseason historically.
Yeah, that's an excellent tweet right there. If you were to cover up Flacco's name and say quarterback X and then list all those things, you'd be racking your brain for what Hall of Famer we're talking about here.
You'd be guessing Tom Brady is what you would be guessing.
Yeah, exactly.
Really?
And then it's just the experience that he brings to the table and everything that he has, everything that he's accomplished so far. Now, he was also a young quarterback that when he came into the league, came into a pretty solid team. So he hit the ground running early on. But just those marks right there are just flat out impressive. And I don't care those are all great accolades to have. And it's also the reason why everyone on that team has the utmost faith in Joe Flacco.
So Flacco was asked just about the perception that the team has, that he's elevated the team's confidence because of that experience.
It's tough to look at it that way. I mean, you can tell that people look at you, guys look at you a little bit differently just because of the fact that I've played, this is the 16th year that I've been in this league. And you can tell that guys look at you a little bit differently just because of that. I mean, I'm dealing with, I always say it, if I messed up in high school, I mean, I could be these kids' dads, it's like, so there is, there's something that, they probably do look at me a little bit differently just because of that. To get a sense of what kind of impact, who knows? I'm just being myself and trying to help them win games. And I think when you're yourself, that's the best chance you have to impact people. So hopefully I've had something.
It's pretty easy to see why the city has kind of taken to Joe Flacco.
Yeah. But think about it. No player on this team, when he won his Super Bowl MVP, was even in the league. The most senior player, Joel Bitonio, was probably in his dorm room in Nevada watching the Super Bowl, and Joe Flacco's getting the MVP. So it's easy to see why they'd have that kind of reverence for him, but it also gives them an unbelievable confidence that they can achieve anything. When they're in that huddle and they look back and they see that guy staring back at them, they believe they can go out there and they can compete with anyone and they can accomplish all their goals, and belief's a powerful thing. It's one of those things like momentum that you really can't put a tangible asset to, but it exists. And the fact that he's rolling in there with that kind of experience and that kind of success already in his past just raises the room around him.
Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily Network 216, and I'm going to take one more time out. We head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. Plus, we'll take a look at some interesting stats about the Browns since they have been back in 1999. Sports for CLE. I'll be right back. Stay with us.
Holiday gold! The $20 scratch off?
It has 100 times multiplier. I could win $1 million.
Psych! I got merry and bright.
No fair.
It has a 200 times multiplier. I could win $2 million.
Game on the back.
Game on the back. Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game on the back! Game.
We continue talking Browns with Casey Kinnamon from Dog Pound Daily Network 216. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hello. Very, very sad to find out yesterday about Dr. Frank passing away. As we all remember, one thing about Dr. Frank, with his lethal arm inside the 20, he was money with Collins. Today, he would destroy most of these defensive backs with that rocket arm of his and accuracy. He was a phenomenal athlete, a wonderful man. There should be more things written about him. Have a good day, sir.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. He's referring to Frank Ryan, was a mathematics professor at Case Western Reserve University. Casey, Terry Pluto wrote an article that was really interesting. Said if you looked at Frank Ryan back in the day, you'd think he was Joe Flacco. And he is the quarterback, the last guy that was quarterback of a Browns team that won an NFL championship pre-Super Bowl days.
Yeah, I was sad to hear of his passing yesterday. And actually, you bring up Terry Pluto. That's how I learned about Dr. Frank Ryan, was this book, Brownstown.
Yeah.
Right there. Excellent book. If you're wanting to get in touch with the roots of the Browns and that last championship team in '64, that's an excellent place to start. But if he tells the story of the '64 season, then he chronicles in each individual player that mattered during the season. And the last player he touches on before he goes on to wrap up the book is Frank Ryan, Dr. Frank Ryan, because 5 months after he won the NFL championship, he got his PhD from Rice. And it's hard for us to wrap our heads around, like, players had to have 2 jobs back in the day, but he was a different breed. Most of those guys were selling insurance or running a car sales, stuff like that. He had a different thing going. He was very cerebral, and he doesn't get as much credit as he deserves. In that 64 championship game, he only completed 11 passes. 3 of them were touchdowns. And they beat the Colts 27-0. They routed them that day, and they did it on the arm of Frank Ryan.
All right. So since the Browns have returned to the NFL in 1999, take a look at these. Pre-Kevin Stefanski, so 1999-2019, 11 win seasons, 0. Playoff berths, 1. Playoff wins, 0. With Kevin Stefanski, 2020 to 2023. 2 11-win seasons, 2 playoff berths, 1 playoff win. Now, Kevin unable to coach because of COVID, so you can be sure he is looking forward to that first playoff game. Bottom line is there's an extension in the offing, and it's well-deserved for both the head coach and the GM.
Yeah, shout out to my guy Nick. He does nothing but fire off heaters on the Bird app. That tweet encapsulates everything of where you're at. You came back and you were here for 20 years. No 11-win seasons, only 1 playoff berth. In the 4 years Stefanski's been here, you've got to 11 wins twice and 2 playoff berths. It shows you where this is trending. And I 100% I agree with you. When this season's over, I fully expect both Stefanski and Andrew Berry to receive extensions, and it's just well deserved. And this year more than most, just all the adversity that they've went through, and not just Stefanski, with Andrew Berry having to shuffle personnel so often and get guys in here off the street and just keep this thing rowing in the same direction. And you're still sitting here with the playoff berth locked up, and most teams would have folded with this kind of adversity.
Well, the other thing that you bring up a really good point, and the best way to say it is they have built the culture they wanted to. You don't win the games and go through what the Browns have gone through without the correct culture. So whether it was the addition of the guys that you brought into the coaching staff with Kevin Stefanski, whatever it is, the culture's here. Now you just have to maintain it.
Yeah, and you see it when you hear the players talk. They expect to win. They know these curveballs have been thrown at them. They dodge that. That's their focus is to win. They don't rely on excuses. They just keep it moving, and that's something you do when you've seen this culture shift, is because in years past you would see how that would break a team down. To them, this is just building their character even more. The fact that they're able to still win despite all the adversity and all the injuries and everything that would be valid excuses. If you were to look back like, well, of course they lost Nick Chubb in week 2. Man, that's so long ago. That's not even in their minds now. They're going 1-0 each week, and that's just the culture that they've built.
All right, so this is interesting as well. This is from Browns PFF. David Njoku, 314 yards after contact this season. That is the best in the NFL. And really, Joe Flacco has figured out, man, if I get the ball in his hands with him moving forward, guys do not want to get in front of him.
Yeah, that leads the league. Not in tight ends, not in players, period. That leads the league, yards after contact. And he's the extension of the run game. He's that guy you can get the ball in their hands, and he's just super physical. He goes downhill at you. And he also leads the league in forcing defensive backs to make business decisions. It's just – and you just feel good for someone like him who's came so far. We didn't even know if he wanted to be here a few years ago to now he is the team. In the absence of Nick Chubb, he's become the heart of this current team. You got to feel good for him. And Flacco knows exactly when to get him the ball. There are certain drives that are just David Njoku drives now. And it's something that I do not expect to stop anytime soon.
All right, so this is from the Bleacher Report. Dalvin Cook been released 4 o'clock tomorrow. He will clear waivers. Ranking the top landing spots for him. This from the Bleacher Report. They say the Cowboys. They say the Bills are 2, the Ravens 3, the Dolphins 4, Browns are 5, and the San Francisco 49ers are 6. While the tandem of Jerome Ford, Kareem Hunt has been serviceable for the Browns, it has not been able to replicate Chubb's offensive impact. Cleveland ranks 11th in rushing yards, but only 25th in yards per carry at 3.9. Relative to replicating, bringing Dalvin Cook in isn't going to replicate Nick Chubb. It just isn't. What are your thoughts? I wouldn't be against it, but I don't think they see that as a need right now, being Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski.
Yeah, I make the move, But I don't do it with hopes of him becoming some dynamic, lead back. But I think it raises the floor of your room. I don't allow. We're in a playoff run. That feels good to say, but we're in a playoff run, and I don't allow the development of a third round of your third back to stop me from bringing a guy who can elevate the room in general and just give you another back with experience. We're talking about a guy who's got like 1,350 carries. You know what I mean? Like that kind of experience is invaluable. And someone you could trust to not fumble the ball. I think that as much as anything, as we've seen in the second half of that game, if you're able to get out to lead, you just need someone who can hold on to the rock. And you got someone like Kareem that can do that, but I don't think he gives you as much dynamic ability, on 1st and 10 as someone like Cook possibly could. So I'd be for bringing him in just to see what you can do.
Yeah, I would agree. The other thing is say he breaks off a big 30-yard run, then your move, and it's the type of move Andrew Berry has been really good and really smart about making all season long, both sides of the ball. Casey Kinnamon, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Casey.
Hey, anytime. Thanks for having me.
Casey Kinnamon, make sure you check him out, Dog Pound Daily, as well as Network 216. Always really good Brown stuff. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.